Hello everybody, and welcome to another installment of California Saltwater Sport Fishing. First one of 2022. Thank you so much for joining us. Today we're going to talk about a half-day trip that I took out on the Real Fun out of Dana Wharf Sportfishing. And half-day trips are a great subject to talk about. There's a lot of pros to a half-day trip. For one, they're relatively cheap compared to a lot of other trips that are out there. Another thing is that they're highly available. There's a lot to choose from a lot of different landings. And they're usually pretty typically just 4 to 5 hours, so they're a relatively short time commitment. And if you're worried about getting seasick, you're not going to be trapped out on a boat for too long. However, there can be some cons to a half-day trip, and some of them are also the pros, like they're short. You're only out there for 4 to 5 hours, so if you need to drive a long distance or something like that, you might not get a lot of fishing time in, or if you only drive a short distance, you go right outside of the harbor mouth, and maybe the fishing isn't as great as you would like. There's also a lot of beginners on these trips, so you can run into a lot of issues with first timers not sure what they're doing, not following their lines, etc. And one of the biggest problems that I tend to find on half-day trips is they can be kind of cliquey. And what I mean by that is that there can often be the regulars, the guys who always go on this trip and they're always there. And oftentimes they can kind of bogart certain prime sections of the boat, like they'll take up the entire stern, for example, and be unwilling to move. Even if you got a fish coming through, they're just going to plant their feet and leave their poles at the rail and act like they own the place. And all the deckhands know them well, so they never give them any static and ask them to move along. So there can be some kind of issues with half days. And the more experience that you get, the less you tend to like going out on the half-day trips. And a couple of points to note for when you're going on a half-day trip: don't overpack. I can often see guys on these trips, well, they'll bring out 5 or 6 poles with them, bring out their large tackle box like they're going on a multi-day trip for tuna or something like that. Just bring a rod or two with you. Make sure you check the counts, see what they're catching, and bring accordingly. If they're just catching calico bass and sand bass and that sort of thing like we were catching out there, you don't need much more than a medium to lightweight pole, something like maybe in the 15 to 20 pound sort of range. Maybe bring a backup pole, something a little heavier in case you do decide to fish a little deeper or something like that for sculpin, but you don't need to bring too much with you. And one thing I like to bring with me is a small tackle box, kind of like this. So you can see it's got 2 sides on it. You can pretty much bring a bunch of egg slider sinkers, a couple of other smaller sinkers in there, and an assortment of hooks, nothing too fancy. And pretty much if you're just fishing bait, this may be all you need in terms of tackle, so you can leave the big boxes at home. So with that in mind, we'll check out a little bit of footage. It was pretty rough out there, very cold out on the water. It was in the upper 50s. So the fish were a little sluggish, a little slow. And like I said, the stern was completely impacted by the locals. So there wasn't much fishing to be done off the stern. Had to do most of the fishing off of the bow. And I highly recommend, if you do these half-day trips, try to do them during the week if you can. Sometimes you can find good deals, like the Dana Wharf Tuesday deal during the wintertime. It's half off. So it was only a $30 ticket. So with that in mind, it wasn't too bad if you consider that, given all of the givens, when it's typically closer to $60. And also during the week, they're a lot less crowded. There was only 14 guys on this boat, but I know on the weekends, these same trips can run 30 people or more. If you go to some landings, they'll oftentimes even put as many as 60, 70 people on a boat. So definitely go during the week if you can. And if you're thinking of bringing your kids out on one of these trips, I'd recommend during the week too, just to make sure that they have a better experience and less tangles and that sort of thing. So let's check out some of the footage. Not very much. It's going to be a short video, and take a look and let me know what you think. Thanks so much. So here we are in beautiful Dana Point Harbor, waiting to board the Real Fun. You can see it's a gorgeous day, a few clouds in the sky. There was a little bit of wind coming in, but overall really can't complain about the weather much. Here we are, the Real Fun's a bit smaller boat, which was probably good because only 14 of us and $30 a piece. They probably could be making too much money. We did stop to pick up bait. I was actually surprised they picked up almost 20 scoops of live bait, considering that this was just a half-day boat with just a handful of full on it. And we were done with it. The day's fishing, they dumped the bait offshore. So yeah, it seemed kind of interesting when you think about, scoops of bait go for like 60, 70, 85 retail, and only had 14 units at $3 a piece. Who knows? I'm not the one running. So you can see everybody, they're set up on the deck, and you can see the guys at the stern kind of taking up their positions back there, which they pretty much held for the entire trip. There wasn't people moving around or anything of that sort of thing. So here is the only footage of me actually catching a fish. The only fish that I caught that day ended up being a short calico, maybe about 10, 11 inches long, caught on a strip of filleted sardine. And it was pretty cold out there. I think surface temperature of the water was around 58, 59 degrees. So fish, when they came up, were pretty cold and probably a little bit lazy. But yeah, so I was out there working off the bow of the boat on strip bait. I'd overheard somebody saying was working the best for the fish, and he comes up a pretty calico, but just a bit short. So I took it over to the back to have the deckhand help me out, because I didn't end up having my plier with me. So
I don't know if this guy's legal or not. It might be short.
As you can see, he told me that piece of sardine that I had on a drop rig,
like
about 6 ounces. The current going was dragging me pretty good down there, so used a size 1 hook and a drop rig seemed to work well, although that was the only fish that I caught. Really, what do I know? But then yeah, we did try it again, and for most of the trip really didn't see much action. A couple of nibbles, tried the squid, tried live bait, tried a little bit of everything, and nothing was happening. And see the locals there take the stern, tried to see if I could get in there, but every someone would get up to rather than their pull with them and putting live bait on, they were just leaving the poles at the rail, which is really not good etiquette. But what do I know? I'm not one of the guys that goes on this trip all the time. But overall, it was just a half boat, $30. Can't complain too much. I do recommend maybe checking them out. We will have another video coming up for the 3/4 day boat this coming weekend when I take out the kids and for some sculpin. So hopefully we get some better results. Thank you all for watching, and please like and subscribe. Thank you so much. Jason.